Kriegstreiber. Kriegstreiber ist Putin. Er ist mit 200.000 Soldaten in die Ukraine eingemarschiert. Er hat noch viele mehr mobilisiert. Er hat das Leben seiner eigenen Bürger riskiert.
Just 2 days before this speech, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said in public that Germany should not deliver weapons to the Ukraine. Otherwise, we are risking the Third World War. 1 day ago, he was in Washington and officially he spoke with the President Joe Biden. Somehow his mind has changed after this visit. This was 2 to 3 weeks after the war in the Ukraine broke out.
Und hat sie auf die Ukraine gerichtet. Er zerstört Städte, er zerstört Dörfer, er zerstört Eisenbahnlinien und Autobahnen. Und er hat unglaublich viele Bürgerinnen und Bürger, Kinder und Alte in der Ukraine getötet.
The media is confronting us every day with war news, and many countries are pushing the military service. Croatia has reintroduced mandatory service. Germany, Belgium, France, Poland and the UK are debating about following Croatia. These are the largest countries in the EU. 9 out of 27 European countries still have mandatory service. So what does all this science means? Does it mean that we are pushed into a war? And if we are pushed into a war, how are we pushed into military service? The hardest part to launch a war is to convince the people and to prepare them in advance. In this video we are doing a deep analysis about how are the people tricked into the military service if we are preparing for war. I'm not saying that we are going in the war, but if we want to go in war, how does this work? And to understand this, we are using the game theory. I call this the game theory of fear because people are pushed into fear by a threat, and to this threat, we have a solution. This is a well-known scheme. I will treat this scheme a bit differently than it's usually treated because I want to do a further and deeper analysis. The first difference you will see is that I have a hypothetical threat and a hypothetical solution. This means that the threat does not need to be real. It can be an invented threat, but it's important to note that this is in the head of the people, same as the solution. You have now 2 options. You can refuse it or you can accept it. If you refuse it, and the threat was not real, well, nothing changed. So we give it a base value of 0. If the threat was real, well, then you get punished, so we give it a value of -5. On the other hand, you can accept the threat and follow the solution. In this case, if it was real, it's often said that you get rewarded. But if it was not real, well, then you say, yeah, you lost nothing. And this is the scheme you see always. But we are going further because in reality you have costs. If you accept the solution, you have to pay something. We are giving it a cost of -5, and suddenly the acceptance of the solution doesn't look as attractive anymore. We have basically a balance. On the left side we have -5, 0, and on the right side we have 0 and -5. So, but these values change for each case. The question that we are following is how do we lift the numbers on the right side and how do we lower the number of the left side? So how do we trick the people into accepting the solution? First, we have to understand that there are 2 types of costs. The 2 types of costs are the passive costs and active costs. For the passive costs, you only have to participate passively. You don't have to really do something. While for the active costs, you have to engage yourself. As you can see, we have another tree on the right side. And this is because in our case, we have a bit more complex situation. So the situation that we have is that the threat is the invasion of Russia and the solution is war support. Before we start, we have to shut off our emotion so we can look at it from a rational point of view. War support in this case means that we are ready to work in the military industry or we fight in the army. And we have basically first the same scheme, so we can refuse it, we can accept it, and if we refuse the threat of the Russian invasion and it was not real, well, we have again our base value, which is 0. But if it was real, then we are basically punished very hard because Russia will take over Europe. And if we accept, now it's a bit different. We see we have different numbers. If we accept the threat and we engage ourselves for the military and we fight back now the Russian invasion, but even then we have a negative number because we have still war. We are still punished somehow, right? Because war is never good. But it's less bad than just letting the Russian invade us. I gave it a cost of -2 because we have to engage physically and economically. This number of -2 is about to debate, but for now we leave it as a not too high cost that you have to pay to prepare for the war. The type of cost is active participation. If the government want us to engage for the military, so they have to lower the value for refusing and they have to increasing the value for accepting. Furthermore, the threat has to look real because if no one believes in it, we see into not real path like here and here. We can see if you refuse it, then you have a value of 0, and if you accept it, you have a value of -2. So the people will all fall on the left side. So what do we need? If it looks real, like the probability for a Russian invasion is high, then we have an -10 compared to -5, and the people will fall to the right side. And now you can answer one of the biggest questions that is in the internet. Why do our politicians act so irrational and take decisions that leads to war? And the answer is genius. The more people believe that we are heading towards war, the more people are falling for the right side in our model. Our model has now one problem. Because if you personally are working in the military industry, you can be hit by a hypersonic missile, or if you fight on the battlefield, you can die. So your personal evaluation might be different. And accepting war support looks dangerous for you. We can see in the statistics that young people are mostly against the mandatory military service. So we have to divide the population in older generations and younger generations. And the older generations are not participating so active as the younger one, but they are influencing the younger generations. Since the older generation is now in fear, they are putting social pressure on the younger generations. And this changed now dramatically the tree that we have for the younger generation. Again, we have -10, -10. These are artificially numbers, but you have to understand the concept that's behind. So if the young people refuse the military service, they get rejected by the society, and so they get punished. But if they accept it, they get honored. What you can see now is if the situation looks real, you have if you refuse the war support, you have a -30, and if you accept it, you have -7. So it's worth now to accept it. But if it's not real, you have a -3 to 3. So it is again worth to accept the military service. So the big question now is, what does rejection or honor means? So rejection can mean that you are socially isolated, that you lose your job, that you get expropriated. And honor can mean that you get socially lifted up, that you get a high paid job, or you get subsidies. And the panic will be real. If you think that the corona time was tough, then be prepared for what is coming because this will be 10 times worse. Right now, we can see that older generation are get put in fear, but if the day comes where they are going to influence the younger generation to accept the military service, then you know what is really going on and where we are heading to.